after weeks of what felt like just injuries and struggles, week 9 was a really good week. It was a great week for comeback victories and a very bad week for quarterback cognitive tests. Good morning. What is up? Welcome to Monday's Hangxiety Club Fantasy's weekly reaction show. I am your host, Ryan Weisse. With me, as always, proud Philadelphia Eagles fan whose mic I have not unmuted yet, Joshua Hudson. How are you doing today, Josh?
Hey, man, it's Victory Monday. Just like Antonio Pierce says, see y'all on Wednesday. Except you won't see me on Wednesday, but that's a whole nother story.
What a week for Antonio Pierce to go from, honestly, putting it bluntly, didn't know he was on a coaching staff, to interim head coach playing against his former team and then just blowing the doors off of them. Like, no complaints.
Fantastic.
If you are living Antonio Pierce's life right now. So. Good morning so far.
Definitely a good week for that kind of stuff. Loved it.
Yeah, I mean, good week really to be an Eagles fan.
8-1, baby. Really Best record in the NFL. I got some fun stats a little bit.
8-1. You got the Giants losing. You got Dallas losing, obviously, and then Washington, I think they won, but they didn't look great. That's for sure. So, you know what? Let's stop guessing at the scores and let's just get into it. So, as we always do, I will recap the scores. We start way back on Thursday. Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Tennessee Titans 20-16. We saw the emergence of Diontae Johnson, brings a smile to everyone on this show's face. Out in Germany, the Chiefs 21-14 over the Dolphins. I called this being a boring game. I was wrong about the turnovers, but man, not a lot of scoring that we expected in this game. Vikings, one of the more insane games of the day, second most insane game of the day, I think you could say. 31-28 in Atlanta over the Falcons. Josh Dobbs with a insane second half to bring them back in that game. Saints 24, Bears 17, a little bit closer than Saints fans would have liked. Rams did not look good without Matthew Stafford, lose to the Packers 20-3. Commanders beat the Patriots 20-17. Ravens beat down the Seattle Seahawks in Baltimore 37-3. Craziest game of the day, going to be a big focus of this show. Texans 39, Buccaneers 37. CJ Stroud has arrived. Browns just destroy Clayton Tune and the Cardinals 27-0. Colts handle business 27-13 against the Panthers. Raiders, as I mentioned, 30-6 over the New York Giants, who lost Daniel Jones yet again. We're going to talk a lot about it here in a second. Eagles 28, Cowboys 23, and on Sunday Night Football, Bengals get the win at home 24-18. Before I let Josh wax poetic about his Philadelphia Eagles, let's take that unnecessary shot of Rumplemints. These are the injuries. Probably the smallest list, Josh, that I think we've had in a month, but still.
Honestly, when I saw this, I'm like, fuck, did we forget some?
Yeah. Josh only had 3 when he did it, and then I went and found another 3. So we're talking 6 total by my confirmation. Daniel Jones likely torn ACL, done for the season. Possibly done with his time in the Giants, though. I was listening.
As bad as they've been, they'll be early in the draft. You could very well see them take a quarterback early.
Their out is after next year, though. So he'll still be with the Giants next year because they gave him that obscene money. But it may be mentoring his replacement. Cam Akers, torn Achilles. I give Cam Akers shit, but this is not how I wanted this to go down. So sucks to be Cam Akers. Sorry about that, man. Dallas Goedert, fractured forearm, IR candidate. Josh, I'm sure I'll have more on that. Christian Watson makes 1 catch in the game and promptly gets hurt. They're calling it a chest injury, but then he was also evaluated for a concussion. I don't mean to laugh. It's just been that kind of season for Christian Watson. Josh Downs left the game with a knee injury. That's one to monitor. And Josh Palmer went from game time decision to out to now hitting the IR for 4 weeks, creating some space in the Los Angeles Chargers wide receiver room. We'll see if first rounder Quentin Johnston can step up to that. Josh, before I let you talk about the Eagles, any thoughts on these injuries?
I mean, obviously the biggest one is Dallas Goedert, which again, I'll get to that here in a bit. Daniel Jones. I mean, this Giants offense wasn't going anywhere anyway. And quite frankly, they looked better with Tyrod Taylor as the starting quarterback. Daniel Jones just has not looked the part this year at all. I don't know if whatever was working with Brian Dable and Mike Kafka calling this offense last year is just non-existent this year because they added a couple new pieces and felt they had to change the way that they went about their offense, or if they just simplified it so much last year that defenses started to figure it out. whatever it is, it's not working. Daniel Jones has regressed now with these injuries and the state of this team, which we all knew the Giants were just a bad football team anyway. They're devoid of talent in a lot of places. They kind of signaled the white flag, so to speak, when they traded Leonard Williams. Yep. They've got some holes. They've got some extra draft capital. They're well on their way to a top 5 draft pick. Who knows if they don't win any more games, which again, if you're starting Tommy DeVito, you're probably not winning very many games, if any. They could end up with a top 2, maybe even top 3 pick. And then you're looking at getting that wide receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr. or potentially that starting quarterback that comes in and replaces Daniel Jones in Caleb Williams or Drake May. So if you're a Giants fan, yeah, this season's rough. It sucks. I'm not losing hope on Brian Daboll. I still think he's a very good coach. This was always set up to be a transition year anyway. It's kind of the same thing with the Vikings. The Giants and Vikings both were 2 teams that really went through and overachieved immensely last year based on, the luck of the draw, especially in the close wins for the Vikings, but also taking advantage of the schedules that were in front of them. Those schedules got harder this year. You're seeing the end results.
Do you think the Giants call one of these veterans that have been out of the league, namely the guy I'm thinking of is Carson Wentz? Do we think maybe they reach out? They know Wentz. Wentz knows the NFC East. You can't just keep throwing Tommy DeVito out there, can you? Like, that just doesn't feel right to me.
Well, I mean, they do have Matt Barkley, I believe, on the practice squad as well.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that.
Familiarity in Daboll's system from their time in Buffalo. He's probably going to be the most likely scenario. But again, you're just you're at a point where the trade deadline is passed. If a veteran quarterback is sitting on the couch right now, there's probably a reason for it.
Yeah.
So what's the point of going out and rushing to get that player when, again, we just talked about it. You are devoid of talent.
And you need these high picks.
And you need these high picks. Exactly. You got another 2nd round pick from Seattle, which they're a team right now that looks like they're regressing. That could end up being a mid-2nd round pick in that deal for Leonard Williams. You'll have your own 2nd, your own 1st. There's moves that this team can make in the draft next year if they hit on those picks.
Yeah, because you're likely replacing Saquon Barkley next year as well. So
correct. And then again, if you lose him in free agency, that's now likely a high, or a 3rd round compensatory pick based on, the projected salary that he would sign if you don't make an impact in free agency yourself next year.
All right, we've already talked about the Giants way too much for a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Let's get to Up with the Birds, Josh.
Yeah, man, this game made me sweat, not going to lie. I mean, obviously the 3 and out early was great. Us going down the field, 7 points on the board. The way they were using Gainwell and Swift kind of, in tandem on a lot of, 21 personnel or 12. Yeah, 21 personnel. I think you're going to see a lot more of this going forward, especially with the injury to Dallas Goedert.
I was just going to say, you really have no choice.
It was kind of like a sweep style play where Gainwell was actually the lead blocker for DeAndre Swift, sprung him for 20 yards. And I'm just like, this right here is the epitome of this Philadelphia Eagles team. They're very selfless. They're not guys that, I need the ball. I need this. I need that. Like, you can make all you want to about that early sideline, kerfuffle or whatever between Hurts and AJ Brown and how that's translated. I don't think it was really anything, in all honesty. Like, it was just Brown being frustrated with whatever. It's not a lack of targets or anything of that nature. This team is winning, plain and simple. They're doing it pretty ugly in a lot of instances, and I've talked about this on numerous occasions. This defense is very much a bend, don't break type of defense. They're not playing man coverage very well at all. James Bradbury looks like he's out there at 45 years old and can't cover anybody.
Such a change from last year.
I'm saying, it's really rough right now. Getting Kevin Byard, great move. Give it time. The bye week is where you start working in some of these kinks. He can take the time to fully dive into the playbook, learn more about the schemes and where he needs to be on certain plays, certain play calls. That's going to get better on the back end. But the defensive line did their thing. 5 sacks on Dak Prescott. Terrence Steele, the right tackle for the Cowboys. RIP, homie. You got burnt. You got toasted. Bad. It was bad for them. But I mean, all in all, like Dallas outgained Philly 406 yards to 292. They had more total plays. I think it was 70 to 59. They were neck and neck in time of possession, but what Philly did well, they made the plays when they needed to. Dallas did not. And that's really what it boiled down to. I mean, you can make the case for, how bad the referees were. A lot of the calls may be going Philly's way. The referees across the NFL right now have been dog shit. That's not exclusive to just this game.
Yeah.
And I don't like making excuses like that. It's really just a matter of we made plays when we needed to. They did not. We made the defensive stops. They did not. Plain and simple. But there were a lot of missed calls in this game. And really, it was on both sides. Yes, there were probably more on the Philly side. But I'll talk about this Dallas Goedert injury really quick because we saw this kind of thing last year where Dallas missed, I think it was 4 weeks.
Yeah.
This is going to open up plays for DeVonta Smith.
Exactly.
Last year, and really the last 2 years, without Dallas Goedert, DeVonta Smith is a dog. Where did I put these notes at?
I was like, I don't think I've seen these.
Yeah, I put them in a different section. Without Dallas Goedert, 15.8 fantasy points per game, 8.4 targets, 5 receptions, 84 yards, almost half a touchdown per game.
Yeah.
Like, he plays. He gets work. Like, he's on pace typically for about 140 plus targets without Dallas Goedert.
Wow.
And as I mentioned, the tight ends behind Goddard were seldom used last year.
Yeah, they brought
They're
in
going to be seldom used
Stoll.
this year.
Yeah.
Correct. They're going to be seldom used this year, especially because they have a much more dynamic weapon out of the backfield in DeAndre Swift than they had last year in Miles Sanders.
Yeah,
so this is why I think you're going to see a lot more of this 21 personnel where you see more Swift and Gainwell on the field. And I think that's going to lend more to Rashad Penny being active in these games, as we saw this week, where he actually did get, I saw it was at least one carry. I didn't see the final stat score on him, but there's a lot of work to do in this offense during this bye week and things that Brian Johnson can do to help make up for that loss of Dallas Goedert. The way that AJ Brown is playing right now, it doesn't fucking matter. But these next 4 weeks are going to be a tough test for the Philadelphia Eagles. Coming out of the bye, they're at Kansas City, they're home to Buffalo, home to San Francisco, at Dallas, and then another road game at Seattle. That's 5 straight games where realistically they could end up 2-3.
Yeah, because Seattle
real there.
Seattle in Seattle is a very different team than what we saw in Baltimore yesterday.
Correct. Yeah. And I mean, Buffalo, for as rough as they've been, we know how good that offense can be. And the way that our defense right now, our pass defense is, Stephon Diggs is going to have a career game. We just gave up 192 yards to freaking CD Lamb.
And I was going to bring this up. I don't think he fit into our notes at all, but if you just look at that Bengals game, Stephon Diggs might be the most underappreciated receiver in the NFL. That was ridiculous for the second straight week, what we're seeing from this guy with broken tackles and fighting through and just things that you don't see a lot of NFL wide receivers do. I'm taking away from your Eagles, but
no, you're good.
Crazy Stephon Diggs.
That was it.
All right,
that was all I got.
we got a riled up crew today, so let's get to some of these comments before we continue on with the show. I don't. Is it the one? I'm going to call you the one because that's what I see at the beginning of your name. He's up 68 or she's up 68. I don't know. They have Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen to go against. It's just a regular PPR league. They're asking if it's a win. Josh, you already mentioned in the comments, but I don't see any situation where this is not a win.
Especially the way the Jets defense have played this year. Like they shut down QB1s. Like this is
one of our takes from the Wednesday show is this is not going to be a pretty Chargers game. So I think not only do you win, you could end up winning by 50 with those two going. So
100%.
Congrats on the dub. Scampers was talking about how it was a great week in the NFL, except for the Panthers who passed on CJ Stroud. And I thought about this all day yesterday. And honestly, I was thinking about it in the context of this show, Josh. It's easy right now. And I'll explain why I'm justifying in a second here. It's easy right now to look at this and be like, whoa, CJ Stroud was the one. We screwed up. And certainly Bryce Young, I think 3 interceptions yesterday, did not look great. Anthony Richardson dealing with the injury. But I also, pump the brakes just a little bit. CJ Stroud has also only done this for half a season. Let's see more out of everybody in this situation. Let's get Bryce Young some nice young wide receivers that he begs for in the draft. There's a lot of things that could change. So I'm not panicking if I'm a Panthers fan. And I'm really just trying to make myself feel better, Josh, because there was a draft in a league that you're in with me where I had the first pick and the third pick. So I knew I was getting 2 of these quarterbacks. And so I was like, I need to decide the one I want to take at 1, and I don't care what happens at the other 2. And I decided, because fantasy brain, I'm going to take Anthony Richardson because I want the rushing upside. And I was praying to God Stroud fell to me at 3. It didn't. So I ended up with Richardson and Young. So now I'm just trying to make myself feel better that I also didn't get Stroud because I would feel a lot fucking better right now if I had CJ Stroud on my roster.
I was going to say, I have CJ Stroud in quite a few dynasty leagues right now. And feeling pretty damn good about it. Not going to lie.
Yeah, why wouldn't you be?
Really liking this. Although I do have one league where I have Stroud. It's a 1 QB dynasty where I have Stroud stashed on my taxi squad. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know that he's fully ready. But right now I'm riding with Geno Smith and Russell Wilson as my QB1. I need some legitimate help. I swung a deal and I traded 2024 first to get Justin Herbert, which, is a fine trade, especially in a 1 quarterback, because ideally that first is going to be mid to late anyway.
Yeah, 10 to 12.
But I'm like, did I really need to make that trade? CJ Stroud,
not looking great right now. Yeah. Jumping the line a little bit, I'm going to throw Caesar up here. He said Stroud and Kenny Moore's 2 pick 6 won the home league yesterday. Yeah,
there you go.
Me and Josh were joking before the show that I predicted one of the Colts running backs would end the game with 2 touchdowns, but instead it was a Colts DB who ended the game with 2 touchdowns. Not exactly what I was looking for. You bring up such an interesting point, and folks, I'm going to get to all your comments here in a second. The taxi squad usage thing, Josh, I had Dallas Goedert, and so I left Laporta and McBride on my taxi squad, but now I have no choice. Someone's getting promoted, so it's going to be.
So there begs the question: which one are you promoting?
I think I got to go with Laporta. I'm a very much contending team, and he shouldn't even be on a taxi squad. So I think I'm going to go Laporta at this point and leave McBride down there for 1 more year. So
makes sense.
Damo, maybe new to the show, don't recognize the name. Thanks for joining us. He was offered DeAndre Swift for Gus Edwards, or should he accept, or should he see if the Gus bus can keep these touchdowns up?
No, I'm riding with Swift. This is hands down Gus Edwards is fine. He's not a game changer. DeAndre Swift can and is a game changer. And that's a guy that I would much prefer just based on overall usage. Both are great running teams. Both have quarterbacks who run the football very well. Yes, we know that Jalen Hurts tends to steal a lot of those short yardage touchdowns. But like I said, DeAndre Swift is going to see a much greater uptick in the passing game. Sans Dallas Goedert with this injury. And Gus Edwards is a non-factor in the passing game.
Yeah. Look at it this way. Every piece of advice this week is going to be sell high on Gus Edwards. They're trying to sell high on Gus Edwards. Don't fall victim to that. You definitely want DeAndre Swift in that. Caesar, Falcons defense had him sweating, and Taysom Hill. For those wondering, follow our Wednesday show and our Club Fantasy YouTube page for my streams of the week, all of which smashed this week. So it was a very good week for the streams of the week. Falcons defense late show pivot. Taysom Hill was a rushing touchdown away from me predicting that he would score a touchdown in 3 different ways in that game. Yes, I said that on Wednesday's show. So that was a fun one. George, welcome back. Long time no see, our friend. So he is blowing all his fab on CJ Stroud, flexing Tank Dell over Davante Adams next week. He is all in on the Texans and trying to trade away Tua, Waddle, and Adams.
Hey, if you'd listened to me a few weeks ago, you would have already traded Jalen Waddle. Just throwing that out there.
That's fair. And if you'd listen to me, you'd have him right now and wonder why you're playing it. No, I'm not saying don't do this if you can get the right investment back. I'm just saying it was 1 week and we need to pump the brakes just a little bit. Just a little bit. I feel like why am I the one who has to pour cold water on CJ Stroud? This is not what I was trying to do. But
well, look, let's play a little devil's advocate here, Ryan. So their next 4 games at the Bengals versus the Cardinals versus the Jaguars versus the Broncos.
He's gonna smash, plain and simple.
I mean, yeah, he's at Jets after that. Titans are a great matchup versus the Browns
in Cincinnati. He's going to damn near in Cincinnati is going to feel like a damn near home game for him with all the Columbus crowd there. So
exactly. I mean, he really only has like, I'd say at most 3 tough games the rest of the way.
Yeah.
At most.
Again, I love the kid. Don't get me wrong. There's no reason not to start him. I maybe hold on to Tua for some just in case shit, but you can definitely move the other guys. Speaking of trades, River Wayne, welcome to the show. Traded away Diggs for Chase and Walker. Amazing trade, in my opinion. Don't let last night break your heart. That is not the sum of this trade. This is going to be a great trade for you when you look back after the fantasy playoffs and you're looking at
you basically got Kenneth Walker for free at that point.
Yeah, absolutely great trade.
Love that.
Joe Ortiz said he played Stroud in the league and traded him and Swift for Carr.
Yeah, we talked about that trade on Wednesday's show. We definitely didn't love it, but it is what it is, man. Sometimes hindsight's always 20/20, but it's 1 week too. So
Carr had a good week, just not a CJ Stroud week.
Correct. But those CJ Stroud weeks are few and far between. Let's be honest.
Yeah, let's be clear. That's one of, if not the best quarterback performances of the year. I might have to go look at that as we do some of our other show parts here. And then I think Brian has a sentiment that everybody in the chat can agree with. We just talked about it a few seconds ago. What are we doing with Davante Adams right now, Josh? Because it's a rough situation in these Raiders streets.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those that right now you really just have to hold. We've seen Aiden O'Connell not be afraid to throw the football, but we also know, and we talk about this kind of ad nauseum, right? What is a young rookie quarterback's best friend? It's a good defense, a tight end, and a strong running game.
Absolutely.
And yesterday they played great defense and they got a strong running game out of Josh Jacobs, who 90 plus and 2 touchdowns, I believe.
Yeah, monster game.
So, are there going to be weeks where Davante Adams is fine? 100%. Absolutely. Garbage time, fantasy manager's best friend. Let's be honest here.
Yeah. Especially with the Raiders.
Exactly. And it's going to be a matter of, and we've seen quotes of this, like Davante Adams has come out and said he really does like Aiden O'Connell. I don't know how much you want to take from that, but it's on record. So it's going to get to a point where if O'Connell keeps starting, Adams will find his way. He's not going to be that top 10 guy that you drafted him to be. But much like with, say, Garrett Wilson after the Aaron Rodgers Achilles injury, we all were like, all right, well, you can't really sell low. You might as well just hold and hope for the best. Wilson's still been a target monster.
Yeah.
He just hasn't really scored the touchdowns, right? So he's kind of settled in as that sort of low end wide receiver 2 with those pop weeks. If he scores a touchdown, that he can sneak into the top 12. And I think that's kind of the same attitude you have to have with Davante Adams going forward, unless somebody comes through and offers you something where you kind of get that out and you're like, all right, this is a deal I can work with.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of looking at it. I mean, again, we've talked about this so much this season, is just change your expectations, plain and simple, because you can't move him. He's not your wide receiver 1 anymore. So I guess we're going to lead into this. I was going to skip questions for a little bit, but would you trade Adams for Bijan with that being in similar situations? I absolutely would. Bijan is actually my buy of the week when we get to that part of the show, and I see Josh shaking his head yes. Guys, we're going to get to the rest of your questions as the show progresses. Let's do a little bit of the show sheet first, if you don't mind. We call it the shot of espresso. This is the quality performance that got the juices flowing. Joshua, we've talked plenty about the kid, and I did just confirm it is the number 1 performance by a quarterback on the season.
There you go. CJ Stroud, Houston Texans QB1 and the QB1 of week 9. 51.8 fantasy points and 6 points per touchdown leagues. 41.8 in standard quarterback scoring leagues, 470 yards, 5 touchdowns. I mean, really, what more can you say at this point? Absolute dominant performance. And I just want to throw this stat that I found on Twitter this morning from Hayden Winks over at Underdog, and Rich Reiber, Lord Reeves, kind of quote tweeted it with some cool stats. CJ Stroud, on first down pass attempts, 19 attempts, 16 completions, 298 yards and 4 touchdowns. a perfect 158.3 passer rating. Who needs a damn running game when you're doing that on first down?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. And yes, we know that Dameon Pierce was ruled out before this game. Devin Singletary did absolutely nothing. I think he had 26 rushing yards on the day. There is no running game on this team at all. And it is a far cry from what we thought, or at least what I thought, this Texans offense would look like this year. They have Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator, right out of that Shanahan coaching tree, has been a revelation. If he keeps this up, we're talking about another head coach from the Shanahan tree in the next 3 years, because the way that he's calling offensive plays right now is absolutely phenomenal. CJ Stroud is doing the damn thing with him calling the plays. It is phenomenal to watch.
Yeah, definitely a fun thing that we're seeing out there. And just the opposite, Josh. I went into this season thinking it was going to be running game out of a defensive coach. And no, not at all.
Yeah, it's been crazy. But you know what? The rest of that Texans offense, they were humming today, or yesterday, excuse me. Tank Dell, the wide receiver 1 on the week, 29.6 fantasy points in PPR, 11 targets, 6 catches, 114 yards, 2 touchdowns, including the game winner with 6 seconds left. My Hail Mary dart throw pass of the week when I went and I picked up Noah Brown in like 4 leagues because I was so desperate.
So nuts. And then another club fantasy writer did the same thing. Like that you guys went out and did this in so many leagues is just crazy to me.
And I literally was doing it on Sunday morning. It did not even cross my mind. But when I'm looking on waivers and just seeing what is out there, I'm like, this is the ultimate Hail Mary at this point. I don't know if it's going to work. Maybe it only gets me 4 points, but fuck it. Noah Brown, 6 targets, 6 receptions, 153 yards, and a touchdown. The wide receiver 3 on the week, 27.3 fantasy points. Shout out Nico Collins. Not the greatest day, but still right now, currently a top 12 wide receiver, 5 targets, 3 catches, 54 yards, a touchdown. He did lose a fumble, but 14.4 fantasy points. I mean, I'll take that any day from a wide receiver, in all honesty. But another breakout, Dalton Schultz, arguably the bargain of offseason shopping, because nobody wanted him, and I don't know why. 11 targets, 10 catches, 130 yards, a touchdown. He too lost the fumble, but again, it did not matter. Tight end 1 on the week, 27 fantasy points. Like, I mean, we talked about this before. The Bucs defense, their front 4 is good at generating pressures. Their back end sucks. They can't cover anybody. Outside of Antoine Winfield, they're awful. Carlton Davis, why is he a starting corner? Jamel Dean, why? I don't get it.
Pretty sure Joe has been screaming that from
and he has been.
For a while now.
He has been. These guys are not great. And a rookie came in and said, have fun with stopping this. Like, wow. That was a fun game to watch, let me tell you. And I had a bar full of Tampa Bay Bucs fans. It was great. Yeah. Good times.
No, that was especially fun, just like you said, to where you don't love Rachaad White, but you have to respect what he's doing right now. So.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't think he's a good running back. And I want to get that out on record. And I have not hid from that. And even on Wednesday, when we had a question that came in, would you start Rachaad White or Nico Collins? Joe was all over Nico Collins.
Yeah.
I like Nico Collins. He did well. This was a matchup tailor-made for Rachaad White to play well. Houston's run defense has been awful. They're awful. Rachaad White is so good out of the backfield as a receiver. This game script worked in Rachaad White's favor because they were able to use him out of the backfield. 4 for 46, I believe, receiving. But more to the point, he had 2 rushing touchdowns. That was not what I thought was going to happen.
In small spurts of what I saw of the game, he looked good too, which is the funny thing, because like you said, he is not shaping up to be a great running back, but he looks big, which I know he's not that big, but he looks big out there. It was interesting.
No, and he played well, which again, I mean, the Bucs are starved right now for any sort of running back production. So getting something out of Rachaad White at this point, I think is great. And we'll talk a little bit more about White later because I do have some more fun stats for him. But
yep. And then you also had an honorable mention. I don't want to leave them out in the cold.
Yeah, I'll give it up for the Cleveland Browns. I mean, look, it's the Arizona Cardinals. Like, they suck. You shut them out. Your defense is good. We know that. But when Deshaun Watson has been in and out of the lineup because he's dealing with we'll call it a bum shoulder at this point, but he's looked like a bum even when he has played. These are the types of games that can fix the season.
Okay.
And Amari Cooper looked like a wide receiver 1.
He did.
And David Njoku looked like a tight end 1. And Deshaun Watson looked like a QB 1.
And he threw some balls that the Browns haven't seen thrown in their stadium for a very, very long time, fitting it into tight windows. Professional quarterback footballs.
Exactly. And I mean, in talking about the running game, we know Jerome Ford got a lot of run here, 20 carries, not much with it. I think he only had 44 yards. Kareem Hunt, also not great on the ground, but he did have the rushing touchdown. But, there's still some kinks to work out here. But again, that defense, not hard to be dominant against a 5th-round rookie quarterback. But, 23 more fantasy points, defensive 2 on the week. Like, this is the kind of stuff that you want from your fantasy defense. So, yeah. And right now, every single team in the AFC North is at least 2 games over 500. Yeah. If the season ended right now, all 4 of them would be playoff teams. So they need this defense to continue to be great. And this was a very good stepping stone for this offense as they continue to stay hot.
Just hilarious that we made that prediction about the AFC West last year and it blew up in our face. And now the AFC North might actually pull it off. For mine, just a quick one, Rhamondre Stevenson. And we have 2 different sections here. It's the morning mimosas and the shot of espresso. Morning mimosa means we think it's going to continue. It was a 1 run. And no, I don't think it's going to continue. But it's such a wonderful illustration of how poorly he is being used by the New England Patriots right now. Just that one beautiful run. He only had 3 more carries and 1 more target than Ezekiel Elliott. He had 129 total yards to Zeke's 32. Maybe, just maybe, you want to get Rhamondre Stevenson the ball quite a bit more than Ezekiel Elliott. And yes, splitting time leads to better efficiency and all the things we always talk about on this show. He's better. He's the best player on your offense. Do something about it. Before we move on, whole bunch of people popping up in the chat. Everybody needs an event this morning. Hutch, glad to have you in the chat, buddy. Our good friend Albert, we didn't have a chance to respond in the chat, so I want to tell you good morning. Yeet56, welcome to the show. Appreciate you guys all joining us this morning. We're using this show, just so you guys know, to talk about when we should panic, when we should chill the fuck out on everything that happened this week. And if you guys need to get any venting out there, just drop it in the chat and we'll do our best to get it on the show. Josh, we still have a lot of things to catch up on. So,
hey, George, let's run through it. Show sheet can always wait. We can get through those fast anyway. So.
Yeah, George said, can he drop Romeo Doubs, Zach Charbonnet, or Christian Watson? And I want to give credit to the chat. You guys are helping each other out, and I love the answers you're giving. So please keep helping each other because we might miss some things. But Josh, are these guys droppable?
Charbonnet is the ultimate insurance policy. I mean, he's one of it's kind of like Alexander Madison in years past, right? Like the moment you drop him is when the starter gets hurt. And obviously we don't wish injuries upon anybody. And I certainly don't want to see Kenneth Walker get hurt because I just traded for him in Dynasty.
Yeah.
But we also know that if anything were to happen to Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet is probably an RB1 in any given week. So I'm still holding on to Charbonnet. But I mean, if you absolutely need the roster spot because you need a fill-in because other people are on IR, X, Y, and Z, sure, you can drop Charbonnet. Christian Watson, I'm out on him. Romeo Doubs is the only one that I would caution, and that's mainly because the target share is there. Yes, this offense sucks. Yes, there's a lot of problems with consistency, continuity, etc. Romeo Doubs week to week is still the number 1B option in that offense.
I have literally nothing to add to that word for word. You need to be done with Christian Watson. I was the one conducting that hype train. I apologize to each and every one of you. Just know that I'm suffering through it right now too. 100% droppable. And another droppable question is Gabe Davis droppable? If you're adding Tank Dell, absolutely. So there's no question there whatsoever. But let's assume Tank Dell isn't the guy out there on waivers right now, Josh. Are you dropping Gabe Davis knowing that the the major part of his game is that he is boom or bust, and we are coming off one of those bust weeks.
See, this is why I don't draft Gabe Davis. It's literally for this reason. Like, I mean, he's the ultimate best ball target to me. Like, he's going to have weeks like week 8 where he puts up 20 plus fantasy points because he's very capable of doing that. Then he's going to have weeks like week 9 against the Bengals where he puts up a big fat goose egg.
My only worry.
I mean, of course I'm worried, but I shouldn't. You shouldn't have it.
My only worry is this should have been a pop game. Everything about this game screams Gabe Davis pop game. These primetime games against very much I don't want to say division opponents, but conference opponents that matter. That's usually when Gabe Davis shows up. For him not to show up this week to goose egg. Now I'm starting to get all worried.
The Bengals defense is good. I feel like that's something that we're forgetting. The Bengals defense is good. Like, you're starting to see the ascension of Dalton Kincaid. So should you be worried about Gabe Davis? Absolutely. Because he is a one-trick pony. It's go long. That's it. Yeah. It's go long, and maybe you're there for a touchdown. Like, he's a flex option. That's what he is. He is matchup dependent. Is he droppable? I mean, if you're going to get Tank Dell, sure. But you know what? There's no difference in Tank Dell to Gabe Davis. Look at their stats.
They're boom bust.
Tank Dell has either scored under 5 points or over 20. Literally no in between.
So yeah, you're getting
it's the same fucking player.
Yep. The difference is Tank Dell could still emerge as the number 1 wide receiver in Houston, whereas Gabe Davis is never going to be that.
Correct.
And Gabe Davis, I think, is suffering from the same thing we knew other players on the Bills were going to suffer from. He's suffering from the rise of Dalton Kincaid and the targets that he's seeing now.
Yeah. So. Not great in your contract year, that's for sure.
Not at all. Joe Ortiz told us, he might still actually win in the Derek Carr League, down by 38, but has Hall and Garrett Wilson. Josh, I'm big on Garrett Wilson this week. Are we big on Hall? Do we think we could see 38 out of these two?
Let's see. So the Los Angeles Chargers over the last 4 weeks allow the 9th most fantasy points to running backs on points per game basis. Breece Hall is going to be fine.
Yeah, I think you could see 20 and 18 out of these guys. Yeah, I think you could get that win. We'll be praying for your Monday miracle there. One thing I want to go back, River Wayne brings up, if you're instead of drafting Charbonnet, if you're not the Walker manager, go try to trade him to the Walker manager. There might be some sort of 100%. Small trade in there for you. So, Josh, this was a good question I meant to get in earlier when we were going off about good old CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud's an auto start over Justin Fields for the rest of the season. I have trouble calling anybody an auto start, especially over Justin Fields, who has maybe not the same ceiling. I don't know that Justin Fields has shown us a 54-point ceiling, but I think it's still more matchup based. But you've also pointed out Stroud has the matchups, Josh.
Yeah. To me, it really just kind of depends on your settings, right? Like if it's, a standard QB scoring league, I think that still is going to favor Fields just because of the rushing. But in 6 point per passing touchdown leagues, like
Stroud,
it's Stroud. And I don't think it's particularly close. I mean, on the season in points per game in standard scoring, CJ Stroud is the QB 4. Crazy. And in 6 point per passing touchdown, he is QB 5. Wow. Fields is considerably lower than that.
Yep.
So
yeah,
in
it's
both
close to an auto start, especially in these next 4 games. Josh pointed out there's no tough games really until they have the Jets. So I don't think you have much to be worried about there. You're not going to make the wrong decision. Brian says he doesn't know a comparable trade for Adams. Brian, I really got this question on here just to yell at you for a second. Amon-Ra St. Brown is not a comparable trade.
No, not at all.
You're going to get
Amon-Ra is a god.
Yes. So, what'd you say? You have Lamb and Myers. So you're not in terrible shape. You ain't getting Amon-Ra, bro. You maybe could attack the Cooper Kupp manager, maybe even the Puka Nacua manager, because they're probably a little worried right now. I don't know if Adams' name recognition gets this trade, and I get being annoyed. Don't go to the Amon-Ra manager, or you're going to end up on Twitter for screenshots of people just busting your balls about your trade. It ain't good. It ain't happening. And Yeet has a question for us. Very concerned about the Seahawks schedule for the rest of the year from a RB perspective. So is there more concern there for, Kenneth Walker than we're giving him credit for? And I want to go look at.
In all honesty, I mean, this team, they want to run the football, and outside of losing by 34 points, they're going to run the football. So and the way that Kenneth Walker puts up fantasy points, he gets them in chunks because he breaks away a lot of runs, but he also scores a lot of touchdowns. And I think the Seahawks are really just kind of hitting a lull in their season. But I get it if you're worried, because there's a very real possibility that Geno Smith was just a one-hit wonder.
Starting to look that way, and I don't know if
it really, like, I've dropped him in a couple redraft leagues.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if Hutch is still in the chat.
But
I don't know if Hutch is still in the chat, but Hutch was one of the ones who kind of called that out, that he did not think Geno was going to be as good this year. Maybe we were a little bit too bought in, and it's starting to look like maybe that is the case.
Thanks.
Yeah, when you look at their schedule, Josh, Commanders next week, so I doubt you're worried about the Commanders, especially after what we just watched Rhamondre Stevenson do. But then Rams in Los Angeles, 49ers in Seattle, and then they do have the 49ers again 2 weeks later in San Francisco. Dallas, who's been decent against the run. The Eagles, as you've pointed out, who have been decent against the run. I won't say I'm not worried, but you are praying for touchdown upside in that situation, because he is going to need to fall into the end zone. We're probably not going to see a lot of yardage.
No, that's 100% fair.
Yep. All right, Josh, as I alluded to earlier, we have two sections where we're happy about things that happen. And the next one is the morning mimosas. It's the tingly feeling that something great is on the horizon. And Josh, just go into it, man, because this whole list is a Josh list.
Diontae Johnson, baby. Finally off the schneid. First touchdown of 2023. His first touchdown catch since 2021. When Ben Roethlisberger was still the quarterback.
Yeah.
This is what I find hilarious. And I really wish Joe was on this stream so I could yell at him. George Pickens ain't it. He has mesmerized people because of his one-handed catches.
Contested catches.
He cannot run routes. He cannot separate.
Yep.
And when you have a young quarterback, they need separation. Because if you cannot separate, you cannot get open. Because they're not anticipating throws the way that veteran quarterbacks anticipate throws. Diontae Johnson has one of the quickest first steps among all receivers in the NFL. That man is 5 yards open before he turns his head. Kenny Pickett, Matt Canada know where to get the football. It is Diontae Johnson. We talked about this last week. When you have wide receivers like a Garrett Wilson, like a Diontae Johnson, who are seeing targets, and they're getting yards, but not quite scoring touchdowns, that touchdown regression to the mean will come.
Exactly.
I know it's only one touchdown. And yes, I'm fully aware that this Pittsburgh Steelers offense is dog shit. Okay? But 8 for 80 in a PPR league, I will take every day of the week, even without a touchdown.
Touchdown's icing on the cake in that situation.
Because George Pickens caught 2 catches for -1 yards. Is that what you want?
And I think both of those happened.
I'll trade it to you.
I think both of those happened in the fourth quarter. I think he went into the fourth quarter blanked out. Like, I don't think he had done anything at that point. So
yeah, like, again, all the one-handed catches do not fucking matter. They don't matter.
And smarter people than I and Josh just said, yeah, it's great that he has such a contested catch rate because he can't separate. And if you go look, that's what it's all about. And then you already touched on your guy earlier in the show, but like I said, this might be the most Josh list I've ever seen because you got some DeVonta Smith love going on as well.
Yeah, and I already brought up the point with Dallas Goedert, but Goddard's going in for surgery on his arm. It is a fracture. I don't know how serious said fracture is, but I would expect him to probably land on IR and miss at minimum 4 weeks. And I'll reiterate the stats: without Dallas Goedert in the lineup, DeVonta Smith averages 15.8 fantasy points per game, over 8 targets, 5 catches, 84 yards. And when you sprinkle in a touchdown every other week, those are numbers that you want. So for all you DeVonta Smith managers out there that have been a little bit frustrated, your time is coming. Beginning in week 11, your time is coming.
I was going to say, Josh,
so don't fret.
That's kind of the the theory of your list here is all the frustrated managers, their time is finally coming. And every one of these guys, because I hang out with you way too often, I have on so many rosters, and I have been frustrated, Josh. And that brings us to the guy who you were so right about last year, but man, he has taken some time to knock the rust off for Josh Jacobs this season.
Look, well, this is what happens when running backs sit. They need to get hit, especially high volume running backs. They need to get hit. And that is exactly what Josh Jacobs is. He is a high volume running back. You don't have 363 carries in a season and not be a high volume running back. Correct. You need to get going. Over 90 yards, 2 touchdowns this week. A young rookie quarterback needs to rely on a running game. This offensive line is very so-so, but when you have a running back like Josh Jacobs, he can beat down a defense and he will wear them down. That is exactly what he is doing. And keep in mind, he is playing for a long-term contract next year.
He is.
This is going to be a new coaching staff coming in.
And it's his last chance to get a deal. This is literally the end of his career.
Get a deal, correct. Running backs do not get third contracts at all, especially really good third contracts, because pretty sure Latavius Murray's had like 15.
Well, he's going to keep getting paid for a little while, just not – this is his last payday.
This is his last big payday.
This is the nest egg.
And this is, give me all the Josh Jacobs volume.
No, I like it. And Josh, I'm going to go with a guy who didn't even play this week, to where we're talking about guys bouncing back from injury, but give me any bit of Drake London I can get my hands on from this point forward. If I'm looking at some of these weird trades, if you want to trade Davante Adams, maybe go get Drake London in another piece. As long as they will commit to Taylor Heineke, which I saw a comment while I was researching this, that they have to go back and look if Taylor Heineke is going to be their quarterback. What the fuck, man? This is ridiculous. But one of the things I like, we talked about strength of schedule. Atlanta has the 5th easiest strength of schedule for fantasy wide receivers moving forward. Heineke has thrown 2 touchdowns in 59 throws to Ritter's 6 touchdowns and 240 throws. It's not enormous, but that's a 2 touchdown higher pace for half the season. And that's going to benefit Drake London, who hasn't had a great touchdown upside. Heineke had a decent game with Matt Collins, who then went on to get hurt. And I can't even think of the other guys' names right now. The kid from Van Jefferson. Like, these are the people he's out here throwing to right now. Kaderil Hodge, who's been kicked around the league. Drake London is going to benefit so immensely from this offense and having Taylor Heineke in there. I would be looking to get my hands on Drake London if I could right now, as long as he's coming back healthy and Taylor Heineke's the fucking quarterback. So.
I still do not understand the need and the love that Arthur Smith has for Jonnu Smith when he has Kyle Pitts at tight end.
Well, we got to talk about that because I have some fun Jonnu Smith.
I don't get it. But it kind of goes to your Drake London point, right? Like, you have all of these scrubs at wide receiver. Defenses are going to zero in on Drake London, and Heineke is going to be like, all right, maybe Matt Collins is down there somewhere.
That could be it. Maybe I'm completely wrong here, but I think the offense is drawn up around Drake London. He was already leading the team in targets.
Oh, no, I'm with you. I'm definitely with you. I have traded Drake London in a couple dynasty leagues. But it's just because I need more consistent wide receiver 1 production on contending teams.
Yeah. Drake London is in the Gabriel Davis school of consistency. Let's be clear here. Yeah. So, you're not quite sure what you're getting. He has another question for us. He has Adams, Aiyuk, Amari Cooper, Adam Thielen, Christian Kirk, and Diontae Johnson at wide receiver. Not a bad group. Running backs, he has Aaron Jones, Brian Robinson, Kenneth Walker, David Montgomery. Got an offer to send Aiyuk for Jonathan Taylor. In a second, I make that trade. We talked a lot about this last week, and Josh may not agree with me, but wide receivers are very easily replaceable, and you're replacing this guy on your own roster. Aiyuk might be your wide receiver 1. I think you're going to see a much better play out of Diontae Johnson as the season moves forward. I'm not worried about Christian Kirk. Adam Thielen had a bad week. It's not going to be his entire season. You need help at running back. Aaron Jones ain't help. We just talked about Kenneth Walker's schedule. David Montgomery might come back to a much lesser workload. Jonathan Taylor ain't coming back to any less of a workload, and it's only going to get bigger. I make this trade immediately, Josh.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I mean, you're essentially trading arguably your wide receiver 2 for your new running back 1.
Yeah.
And like you said, I mean, you can replace Aiyuk's production pretty easily on this team. I mean, Christian Kirk has been great. Diontae Johnson, he's consistent. Amari Cooper's been kind of hit or miss, but a lot of that has been on the quarterback play. Took a big step forward this week.
And the targets have been there. It just hasn't been.
Yeah, and the targets have been there. Exactly. And that's, again, what we chase in fantasy. We're chasing targets. We're chasing opportunity. Adam Thielen, I think he'll be fine. Although I will say you do have to wonder a little bit about Bryce Young's confidence after this week, because another 3 interception game, 2 of them were pick sixes. I mean, I'm going to get to this in a little bit, but my God, that Panthers team is just not it.
Nope. Very, very bad team around that number 1 pick. It's the exact opposite of what we're seeing in Houston. Let's get to the head scratcher, Josh, because I think that's what you were alluding to. These are the hangover, we call it. It's our biggest head scratchers of the week. And before I let Josh go in, I'm actually going to go first on this one because we were alluding to it. Why is Arthur Smith the only one who can unlock Jonnu Smith? So weird to me, Josh. I was thinking about this yesterday, and the stats bear it out for me. In 2021, after he went to the Patriots, Jonnu Smith had 67 fantasy points. In 22, that dropped all the way to 52 fantasy points. Through 9 games in 2023, he is already at 86 fantasy points. He is very likely to beat his entire Patriots career in 1 season back with Arthur Smith in Atlanta. And that's just incredible to me. And I didn't get a chance to look it up, but I remember he was always decent with Tennessee, but he had never actually broken out. In his final year in Tennessee, 99 fantasy points. So again, he just does so much better with Arthur Smith than he does anywhere else. And you can't convince me. How did they not figure out how to use him in New England? Is he just a different player? Is he better motivated? Does Arthur Smith understand him better? Does he like Atlanta better than Boston? It's so weird to me that he's doing so much better when the Patriots needed him. They had no receivers. It's just strange to me.
Well, I mean, he is a good blocking tight end. He is a good blocking tight end, but he's always been, it feels like Jonnu is just kind of that guy that needs to get moved around, right? He can do so many things really well. He's not an elite route runner by any means. But again, and we talk about this with tight ends, when you're good at blocking, sometimes you get pigeonholed into that.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter how good you are as a receiver. And I feel like we're starting to see that with Kyle Pitts. Arthur Smith has 2 really athletic tight ends in Pitts and Jonnu Smith. One of them is probably just a better blocker than the other, so he's going to move the other one around and get him in space. And it kind of feels like that's what he's doing with Jonnu and Pitts right now.
But yeah, when I saw Jonnu break off that large touchdown run, I'm just where has this been for 2 years? And so I immediately knew that was going to be my head scratcher this week, Josh. But you have a couple of great ones as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to lead off with kind of what we were talking about with the Panthers. The trade deadline came and went. Everybody knew that the Panthers were trying to go out and get a wide receiver 1. I know that not a lot of wide receiver 1s are available. And I knew the biggest topic of conversation was really going to center around Jerry Jeudy. I've been long on the bandwagon that Jerry Judy's a fucking bum. He's not a quality wide receiver 1. Okay. He's overrated. But you know what? Maybe he can work with Bryce Young. Just maybe. I mean, both of them were Alabama guys. Maybe it can work. We saw it with, DeVonta and Jalen Hurts. We've seen it with Chase and Burrow. Maybe it's there for Jeudy and Bryce Young. I don't know. But you didn't make a move. You couldn't even deal Terrace Marshall, which I get it.
The Browns moved DPJ. Fraud. You could have moved Terrace Marshall.
Exactly. You could have done something. But more to the point, you didn't even go and get a fucking offensive lineman.
Nope. When 3 or 4 were traded at the deadline.
Exactly. Ezra Cleveland got traded from Minnesota to Jacksonville. Why were you not calling around and trying to get your young quarterback some protection? Because that protection right there goes towards giving him that extra half second to find Adam Thielen or find DJ Chark. Or any number of these scrub wide receivers that they're trotting out right now.
Yeah, it's not good.
You gave up an additional first-round pick and that wide receiver 1 that you so desperately need to move up and get your quarterback.
Yep.
There are so many issues with how you run a franchise, and that is egregious reason number 1. You don't trade the wide receiver to go get the quarterback when that quarterback needs the wide receiver to grow.
And not even just that, the 26-year-old wide receiver, if I remember correctly, like that's who you're going to put with the quarterback.
Give up that other first-round pick that's 3 years down the road. That's what you give up, not a quality wide receiver one who's still young. That's dumb.
Yeah.
Panthers.
It's frustrating. And the offensive line, I think, is what you hit on the head. I covered the Panthers for Football Guys this preseason. And this kid was running for his life in every joint practice and every preseason game. It was a concern about the hits he was taking. And you talked about his possible loss of confidence. I'm worried about his possible loss of health if they keep getting. We've already seen Dalton play a little bit, so not what you want to see out of your franchise quarterback. And then, as you already mentioned, are we seeing a step back of another franchise quarterback to be? So.
Yeah, well, I never would put Geno
I know you wouldn't.
franchise quarterback in the same sentence. Let's be real here, but they went out and surrounded him with a ton of talent.
Yes, they did.
They spent their top two, well, I don't want to say top two of their top 3 draft picks in this past draft class on offensive weapons. They got Zach Charbonnet, which I don't understand the need for that, but this is Pete Carroll we're talking about. But getting Jackson Smith and Jigba was arguably the biggest value of that draft, in my opinion. And he's been pretty solid. Like he was my big sell candidate this past week. Another 6 for 63 this week. I mean, truly, he outproduced everybody. But again, a lot of it was garbage time. Let's be real here. 1 catch for 50 yards for DK. All right, and he's a big play guy. That's what he does. Tyler Lockett, I think, only
it was a really nice big play.
Yeah, you need more of those, though. That's the problem.
Exactly.
And that the Ravens defense, they came to play. They were all over Geno Smith all game. This is a young offensive line that Seattle has, and I get that. But 3 fucking points? 3?
Yeah. And the Ravens defense are not world beaters. They are good. They're not
good. They're not Cleveland Browns good.
Exactly.
Okay. 3 points? 3? With that arsenal of offensive weapons, 3 points? You were leading the NFC West because San Francisco can't pull their head out of their ass and actually make a come from behind win. This was your opportunity to put a stranglehold on this division when you have 2 games coming up against San Francisco. This is not how you do that. This is not winning football. What are you doing?
And now you're going home with your tail between your legs, and that's not how you want to go prep into your next game. Definitely
awful
not a good look. No, I agree. Got to give Jim Lord Israel a little kudos here. I think he's been one who's been beating the drum for the Raiders D, where I said I was nervous about him. He's calling out the good Raiders D, but sadly started Tua and Flowers over Higgins and Dak. And Josh, there's one name I want to focus on in this question because I got some questions about it this morning, and that is Zay Flowers. Are we nervous for this kid? Odell Beckham's starting to step up a little bit. We know it's not a high passing volume offense. Mark Andrews is there. Is he hitting a rookie wall? Is this just the nature of having a small pie of passing offense? Are we worried about Zay Flowers?
I'm not overly worried, but again, you kind of know what you're getting into with Zay Flowers because it's a run-first offense.
Yes.
Like, they're going to run the football. Lamar Jackson is a quarterback who is extremely athletic and knows how to run the ball. Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, we saw the Keaton Mitchell breakout. Like, they're going to run the football. Mark Andrews was always going to be the number 1 pass-catching option in this offense. Yeah, it was kind of diluted a little bit early in the season because Mark Andrews was, struggling with an injury and needed to kind of work his way back. But the thing with Zay Flowers is they're just not scheming him downfield. He is a low A-dot target guy. So, I mean, if you're happy with stat lines like 7 catches for 49 yards, then sure, you're not worried. But considering where you drafted him, that should be fine.
Exactly.
Let's be honest. That's fine. Like, I'm not worried in that sense, but I'm also I don't have high expectations for him. So there's that. Like, he's still, to me, he's a dynasty asset. Maybe his A-dot. I mean, look, we talked about, remember back when Jalen Waddle's rookie year and he had like 90 catches and his A-dot was like 2.5?
Yep. And then he jumped out to 17 yards per catch the next season.
Exactly. I'm not panicking on Zay Flowers.
Yeah.
Like, he is what he is this year. He's a matchup dependent flex option. That's
I'll just add that you can't have high expectations for him because he's only 5'9", so he won't be able to reach him.
You heightest.
Guys, it's cream or sugar. Cream rises to the top. Sugar falls to the bottom. This is our buy low, sell high trade segment. And Josh, of all the things I wasn't sure I would see this season, seeing you tell people to buy Rachaad White, and obviously you've given your reasoning, and I'm going to let you talk about it again. It's just a surprise for me, buddy.
I died a little inside typing.
I bet you did. I laughed when I saw it on the show sheet.
I'm still laughing. Look, I've said it again. I don't think he's that talented of a runner. He was RB1 on the week. Yes, 3.6 yards per carry. This offense is not great running the football. Yes, their offensive line has problems, but it falls on the running back. Rachaad White is not good between the tackles. He's not built to run between the tackles. This is what we talk about all the time with Tony Pollard. But he's skilled as a pass catcher. And you know what? Here's his next 4 games. And these are where these teams rank in fantasy points allowed to the running back position per game since week 4. They play Tennessee next. They've allowed the 14th most fantasy points to running backs. San Francisco, yeah, we know they're pretty good against the run, but when you have to throw to keep up, what's going to happen? That's going to benefit Rachaad White, who
they've given up quite a few running back touchdowns this year, too.
Yeah. And then this is where it gets really juicy. At Indy, who have allowed the most fantasy points per games to running backs, and Carolina, who allow the second most since week 4. So, I mean, maybe you want to wait for Tennessee. Maybe he struggles a little bit. 3 yards per carry, 10 fantasy points, etc. Maybe you get him at a slight discount. But here's the fun part. Ryan, you were saying go buy Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
Guess who has more fantasy points per game this season than Bijan Robinson?
Rachaad White.
It's Rachaad White. Like, I'm just saying, sometimes we need to look at the numbers and less about the name value. You could probably go and get Rachaad White for a hell of a lot less than what it would cost to go get Bijan Robinson, or you could trade Bijan Robinson and get Rachaad White plus. I mean,
that's not the worst idea in the world. I actually have them both on multiple squads. So, but that's not the worst idea. Like I said, Bijan Robinson, I think he's a buy, and we're going to get to that in a second. But I think Rachaad White is probably a better buy, especially in PPR leagues, because as we know, Arthur Smith won't use Bijan that way. But you have a different sell candidate, Josh.
Yeah, I'm going to take advantage of. We need to get Aaron Jones the football, and we just gave him 20 plus touches, and he finally scored a touchdown. This offense still sucks. You do not want any piece of the Green Bay Packers offense. Aaron Jones, he faces one top 10 team in points allowed to running backs over the next 4 weeks. At Pittsburgh versus the Chargers, at Detroit, who have allowed the least amount of fantasy points to running backs since week 4.
Very different.
In Kansas City. Chargers allow the 9th most. Pittsburgh allows the 12th most. Pittsburgh is going to eat Green Bay alive. I don't care that they give up points to the running back position. Their pass defense is going to eat Jordan Love for breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week. Get out of under Aaron Jones right now while you can.
Yeah. And I'm just going to actually reiterate my sell first, and that's Najee Harris. Get out from under Najee Harris while you can. If you've held for this long, this is the time to pounce. He has now given you 3 consecutive good weeks. He has scored more points in the last 3 weeks than he did in the first 5 of the season. But the fact of the matter is this: he just scored 15 of his 75 fantasy points in 1 game. His name might still carry some recognition that makes him trade worthy. He is still only averaging 3.8 yards per carry. And that efficiency is just paling in comparison to what we're seeing from Jaylen Warren in this same offense, 4.7 yards per carry. And I say it all the time, backup running backs are supposed to be more efficient, but Jaylen Warren just looks better, not just more efficient. And he's taking those valuable passing game looks that we talked about with Rachaad White. Those are going to Warren. Najee Harris is a sell right now if you can go out and get a Rachaad White. And I don't think that's out of the question that someone might look at these 2 names and be like, yeah, I want Najee. And maybe you need to throw in a wide receiver. And this is what I talked about last week. Don't be afraid to throw in wide receiver 3s and wide receiver 4s because they are very easily replaceable right now. Nothing to be afraid there. And I am buying Bijan Robinson mainly because I like to look at guys where the narrative isn't really matching the production. And it has been a frustrating 3 weeks with Bijan Robinson. Managers are pissed right now. I don't know. I haven't seen more people. I'm still a part. I'm an old guy. I'm still a part of Facebook groups about fantasy football, and they are all bitching about Bijan Robinson and Arthur Smith right now. And talent is going to win out. He is still splitting carries 50-50. And so while Tyler Algier is doing a little bit more with his carries, Bijan Robinson is still a better running back, and he is still the RB13, scoring 12 fantasy points per game, and that is not insignificant number when it comes to running back. So yes, there are going to be frustrating times with Bijan Robinson. I think it's going to get better as the season progresses. Again, given that Taylor Heineke is the quarterback, and that's going to be a big everything when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons. Josh, do we like Christian Kirk or T. Higgins better rest of season? Obviously, we're seeing the reemergence of the Bengals offense, and T. Higgins and the Jaguars were on bye this week.
Oof. I think probably Christian Kirk.
Okay.
This is a lot closer than I would have had this probably even at the start of the season. Christian Kirk just looks like the better wide receiver in that Jaguars offense. And I understand they're having some things to work out there in Jacksonville. Hopefully a bye week helps the same way that the bye week clearly helped the Bengals and Joe Burrow get right, because that's led to that increased production from T. Higgins.
Yeah.
But for me, there's still an alpha dog in that Bengals wide receiver room, and that's Jamar Chase. Jaguars don't have that.
It took
as much as we want Calvin Ridley to be that. He's not.
I didn't
so
that.
I'm going to take Christian Kirk there.
I would also take Kirk. It takes a bad Jamar Chase game for T. Higgins to be good, like we saw last night.
Well, let me rephrase it. It takes a bad Jamar Chase game for Higgins to be great.
Elite.
Yes.
Yes.
But even a great Jamar Chase game, T. Higgins can still be respectable.
Yeah.
But they're getting Tyler Boyd very involved still.
Which
like he has not gone anywhere. You could make the case that T. Higgins is the third option really in that offense.
Definitely not what you see. I mean, even Irv Smith caught a touchdown last night. So
yeah.
Like there's a lot of
Tanner Hudson. Drew Sample caught a freaking touchdown.
Yeah. So you're just seeing they're spreading the ball around. And if you're going to have a team spreading the ball around, you don't want the second or Josh mentioned possibly even third target in that offense. Now, I will also take Christian Kirk. And Josh, we created the show by telling people when it's time to panic and when it is time to chill the fuck out. This is that segment when the dud was just a blip on the schedule, or the good week, maybe it was just because things fell the exact right manner. And Josh, I think you agree that Keaton Mitchell's good week might have been things working out just perfectly for him.
Yeah, I remember getting off of work, seeing this stat line, and I'm like, all right, who got hurt? That's what happened. And I started watching highlights, started kind of going back, looking at a couple different things. He ripped off those two big runs in the second half.
Yeah.
That's where these chunk yards came from. And the Ravens were already up by like 24 points.
Yep. The Ravens were up
immediately. Let's maybe kind of pump the brakes in redraft. Now, I understand, some people just kind of keep that last roster spot open for players like this that maybe could pop off with an injury. If Gus Edwards were to get hurt, if Justice Hill misses any more time, yeah, sure. Maybe Keaton Mitchell has value. To me, he's still very matchup dependent. The Seahawks really haven't been great against running backs for a few years now.
Yeah.
And he got caught from behind. Let's again pump the fucking brakes here. This is a speedster that is speedy. But hey, you know what? Get better conditioned, all right? You're an NFL football player.
Yeah, Rhamondre Stevenson didn't get caught from behind.
Exactly.
No, it's a good point. And Josh, you hit the nails on the head because you're going to hear Keaton Mitchell's name here in a few seconds again. You hit the nail on the head.
But it makes sense in that segment, Ryan.
Exactly.
It makes sense in that segment.
In redraft, he's not the one you're looking for, especially
in an 8 or a 10 team league.
A shallow bench league on top of that. Even in a super deep league with a shallow bench, I don't know that I'm rushing out to get Keaton Mitchell. For me, I'm going to tell
open roster spots in that format, though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. For me, I'm going to tell people not to panic on Lamar Jackson. Again, this is coming from, I try to find ones on here that I'm seeing people bitch about and I roll my eyes at. And I saw somebody yesterday be like, I'm dropping Lamar Jackson. I don't know when I can trust him. What is wrong with you? Like, this shouldn't even need to be talked about.
Playing at an MVP level, and he leads the NFL in completion percentage.
The QB4 in fantasy right now. You can't panic after blowouts. And that's what I want my takeaway to be from this is, if it's a blowout win or a blowout loss, I throw those stats out the door. It doesn't matter. It's just like when we wanted to pick on the Broncos, Josh, about getting crushed by running backs. Well, you had to take the Miami game out of that because it was a weird game, but the Broncos still get crushed by running backs. So that's still held. Lamar Jackson, it doesn't perform well in blowout wins or blowout losses because the Ravens protect him. They have to. They have all this money in him. He has an injury history. You can't lose Lamar Jackson. There was no reason to put him into any precarious situations on Sunday, and he still got you a touchdown. So shut up about Lamar Jackson. And then don't please, after one good week and then another bad week, don't panic about Trey McBride. Put some respect on the Browns. They're very good against tight ends not named Mark Andrews. And you have to remember that a QB change is imminent in Arizona. You're not going to be dealing with Clayton Tune for the rest of the season. They need to see if Kyler Murray is their guy. Kyler Murray is going to come out here. Trey McBride still left this game with 5 targets, still second target on the team. What I wrote in my article this past week for waiver pickups was, this target tree is very thin, and there is no reason not to think he is going to beat Michael Wilson and Rondale Moore every single week, Josh. So do not panic on Trey McBride after one singular week. And if you're thinking about dropping Lamar Jackson, let me know. I have some league openings. I want to get you in because I want your money. Like, that's just bad decision making.
Stop taunting people, Ryan. It's rude.
Yeah.
We leave that to Joe, and that's on Wednesdays.
That's fair. Just don't drop Lamar Jackson. Deep waivers. These are guys available in 90% or more ESPN leagues. And I kind of break these down by category as an ode to Mark, who used to do these for us. So my first 2 guys are just regular. Noah Brown. You want to get this guy right now because he seems to have really stepped up since he came off of the IR and since Robert Woods has been hurt. If you want a piece of CJ Stroud, Noah Brown is the easiest piece to get a hold of right now. And the same thing with Wan'Dale Robinson. I don't know what's going on with this Giants offense, but he is their leader. Darius Slayton is their deep threat guy. But right now with Tommy DeVito, you need the guy who's going to be catching the small underneath routes. And that's Wan'Dale Robinson out there in a ton of leagues. I left my old man corner blank. I originally wrote Taylor Heineke because, first of all, he's way older than you think he is, which threw me off when I was looking him up the one day. I think he's like 30, 31 years old. But now they won't even commit to him as the starter. I guess he's still my old man corner just because if you like the Atlanta offense, if you like their passing game matchups coming forth, maybe Taylor Heineke's a good week for you on a bye week fill-in. For Dynasty, you're looking at Keaton Mitchell. The kid is fast, getting caught behind or not. He should not be available in very many Dynasty leagues, and he was actually available in quite a few of my Dynasty leagues last week, Josh, where I saw people putting in waiver claims and grabbing him as he started to get more and more involved in this offense. You are praying for an injury, but in Dynasty, you're also praying for maybe next year is going to be his chance. And in Superflex, you got to grab Josh Dobbs after what he did this week.
Oh, my God. Phenomenal performance.
If you watch that game, and they played a ton of it on Red Zone, everybody who watches the show knows I typically watch Red Zone. He looked like a different player from first half to fourth quarter because when he came in, he did not know the offense, obviously, as they made many jokes about. He didn't know players' names. He didn't know where people were going to be. He looked lost. It did not look good. And then all of a sudden, he just remembered that he is a world-class fucking athlete, and I'm just going to go out here and have fun. And you could tell that's what he did. And he went out there. He got players involved. He got involved himself with one of the better QB runs we've seen for a touchdown this season. Josh Dobbs, he's not one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, but I don't think anyone's going to out-heart him on the field. And I think you have to give him his kudos for what he just did. And putting it bluntly, I'm going to change my tune. I think that Josh Dobbs performance and that team's performance, Justin Jefferson is going to come back this season. I'm changing my tune from a week ago.
And speaking of Josh Dobbs, that's an injury that we didn't even talk about. Jaron Hall left this game with a concussion. That's what threw.
Yeah, I almost put it in, but I figured.
Well.
Yes,
I mean, at this point, like, and I feel so bad for Jaron Hall. He leaves with a concussion. Josh Dobbs comes out and does what he does. This kid's not going to get another chance to start the rest of the season if Josh Dobbs stays healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're the Vikings, you can't go back to that.
Nope. And like I said, Josh Dobbs did some decent things for the Cardinals. Obviously, it didn't result in very many wins, but he did some decent things with the Cardinals, but he has a lot better weapons.
There's more talent on the Vikings.
Exactly.
There's more talent on the Vikings. He can keep this team in playoff contention.
Yep. All right, Josh, before we get out of here, your burner account has a question for us. In a 20-team PPR league, would we trade away Christian Kirk for Javonte Williams and T. Higgins. So the roster is Lamar, Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones, Tyreek Hill, DJ Moore, Kittle, and Christian Kirk. First and foremost, we've probably talked about this team before. The fact that you pulled this off in a fucking 20-team league, this is filthy. Just flat out filthy. And he has Demario Douglas on his bench. Gerald Everett is hit or miss. Obviously, Jameson Williams is the definition of hit or miss. But not a bad bench, but certainly a better starting lineup. And I think I make this trade easily, Josh.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. And this goes to why Josh even asked us about, who we value more rest of the season, Christian Kirk or T. Higgins. Yeah, I do value Christian Kirk more than T. Higgins. But if you're making this trade, you're basically getting a free running back.
Exactly. And
in a 20-team league, I need as many running backs as I can get.
And notice when you mentioned your decent bench, you didn't mention any running backs there, brother.
You exactly.
Need these guys on your teams.
You have JT, you have Aaron Jones. I don't think grabbing Javonte Williams can hurt you much, just being honest.
No, I make this trade all day. Give me Higgins and Williams side. You need to make that trade. Depth in a 20-team league. I play in a 32-man league, and the depth is just absolutely insane. Depth is something you cannot beat because when that injury finally happens, you're the one team in the league that can survive it. So make that trade. Josh, from the Monday night game, we got Chargers at Jets, and we had some pretty strong feelings about this game that we think this could be a Jets surprise game. The line, Chargers on the road favorites, -3.5. The over-under on this game is 40. What do you think we see on Monday night, Josh?
You're going to see a lot of people that bet on the Chargers lose a lot of money. Brandon Staley is going to find a way to Brandon Staley this game.
So for someone like me who put together some parlays yesterday and somehow have won every single game of a pretty enormous parlay, not a lot of money because I have no balls. But I just don't think I'm going to win. I could cash out on all of my Chargers, and you think I should do that because I did pick the Chargers to win this game, and I'm already having second guesses about that. So
yeah, I would take the Jets to win this game.
Yeah, I think that's where I stand as well. So I think I would go the over. I think if the Jets are going to win, you're going to see some scoring in this game. I think I would go over 40. Weather in New York, I don't think is too bad right now. But yeah, I agree. Josh, any parting words for our friends out there? What a wonderful show. Thank you guys for being so involved.
Absolutely. These shows don't happen without each and every one of you tuning in and listening and chiming in on the chat. This is what makes it fun. This is why we do this. So appreciate all of you. And if you haven't already, please hit subscribe to our YouTube channel. Or if you're watching us on any other channel, make sure you're following us and sharing our work, because at the end of the day, that's how we grow. And hopefully afford to feed some kids that I don't have, but Ryan does have. Who knows?
He eats a lot. Josh hit it on the head. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit subscribe. We need to get to 1,000 followers there. For anybody who wants a peek behind the curtain, you need to get 1,000 followers before you can monetize, and then you'll start seeing ads on our videos. So that's going to tell you not to hit subscribe. But look, motherfuckers, we need this money. So go ahead and hit subscribe. Josh is doing such a great job producing all these shorts.
Hey, we're nice enough to not set up a Patreon and charge people.
Yeah, we're never going to beg you for money, just for clicks.
Exactly.
Someone said early in the show, this show deserves more than 3 viewers, and whatever platform he was on, we only had 3 viewers, but we appreciate that. And we agree. We deserve far more than 3 viewers because we're entertaining, and we do this for 75 minutes every Monday morning, just to let you guys know, hey, we suffer through this shit too, and we're here to help you guys. I don't know. I have nothing else in our outro.
Weekly therapy.
We have articles and shows dropping every day of the week. You can find the website clubfantasyffl.com. You can follow us on all the socials at clubfantasyffl. For Josh, I'm Ryan. I hope your Monday miracles come through, and have a wonderful day.